Welcome to another episode of The Way to Value by Design Advisors. First primetime episode tonight. We're coming to you a little later than normal. Our guest today is Trey Gaskin, CEO and founder of Advanced Property Tech. Trey, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Trey's been in the tech world for decades. He's grown, scaled, and exited a company, and we're just excited to talk to him about building world-class teams and growing and scaling companies. So as by my side, I have Marty Osborne, my partner. I said it again. Right?
You got it right.
For
Yeah,
the
we're doing
second time
good.
in a row. Marty, welcome. Good to have you back again.
By the way, I got a question for you. You said we're under the lights. Like, how does anybody know that? Like,
that's a good point.
When we release it, it's the morning.
That's
so,
true. It feels different for me. I feel like it's a prime time
we
episode.
should have a beer in our hand or something. But
well, good. Well, Trey,
We could do that.
we could do that. Yeah.
don't threaten me with a
We
good
may
time.
do that.
Well, let's start. Trey, just tell us a little bit about Advanced Property Tech and what you guys do.
Yeah, so we're a low voltage technology integration firm. We work with a lot of commercial real estate companies. We have multifamily is kind of the main market we go after. That's probably 80% of our work. And we tried to be the kind of go-to kind of technology 2.0. There's a low voltage is an industry, from an industry perspective, it's kind of the last thing a lot of people look at when they're building a new building. And so they go for the concrete, the mechanical, the electrical, plumbing, civil, and then one day we'll get to the low voltage part of it. So we're the redheaded stepchild, and it's a very siloed industry, and we try to do multiple things, stay in our lanes, multiple lanes, but try to be the one-stop shop for a lot of our customers and just do a great job on time, on spec, and just work with the people instead of just kind of being siloed.
So what is low voltage? Like, I mean, I know my lights in my yard are low voltage and that kind of stuff, but I'm kind of curious when you say that. I'm like, what is that? And
yeah, so think of we're in Greenville, and downtown Greenville's close by, and there's a lot of new kind of funky apartments and multifamily houses down there, right? And if you think about technology that's down there today, there's access control, there's security cameras, there's emergency radio responders, there's Wi-Fi, and there's some pretty cool things that have happened in the Wi-Fi world. There's smart door locks, smart thermostats. And in our past, there were companies that would do bits and pieces of that, and there was a lot of finger pointing from the general contractor or the developer about who's responsible for something, and the whole solution's not working. So we did a lot of homework and felt like if we could be one company that was regional, so we're North Carolina to Florida to Tennessee, Alabama. That's our kind of sweet spot. But if we could be one company that can help our customers with that core technology solution, that would probably benefit us, because they're more market by market driven, and there's not a lot of companies that cover a regional area. And in the multifamily world, there's a lot of clients that cover the Southeast, and so we kind of cater to those folks.
Well, at least you're in a growing area, and I guess expanding and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, you look at the millennials. A lot of them don't want a house. They want to stay in an apartment. They don't want to cut the grass. They build to rent is kind of a new area. And so a lot of the millennial types, they live in a high rise or mid rise, and then they got a dog and they decide, I don't want to keep going down the elevator. So these build to rent places are taking off, and we work with them as well.
Well, what's interesting too, I think in this group is kind of in the technology space, keys are no longer here. And, I want to open up I don't want to carry a fob. I can't have my phone or, facial recognition. Shouldn't I just be able to walk up and it recognizes Marty Osborne in the elevator? And I think those are the kind of things, right, that you guys really get into is.
Yeah. To go back a teeny bit, I worked for IBM for 10 years, and one of my tennis partners, play a lot of tennis, owned a bunch of multifamily units and asked me to help him look over some contracts. And he was a customer of ours as well. And literally over kind of lunch and a couple meetings, we put together an idea and started my first company when I was in my early 30s. And so we built that company out, sold it, did some other startup things, and then I did kind of another version of my first company. And really at the end of that, we were asking our customers, we're already a cable and internet and telephone provider for you. What else can we do? And that's when we started getting the research that this low voltage area was very fragmented. It was kind of broken, and maybe that would be a good thing to work on. And so we found a way to do that with, I partnered with an existing firm, and we kind of built it up to a level where it's like you need to go left or right. And my partners liked what we were doing, but they wanted to focus on bigger deals like stadiums and airports. And kind of, the multifamily was kind of a single or a double. And I said, you do you, and let's start this new company and really specialize in it and be different. And so one of our captions is the integrator that actually integrates. And a lot of integrators do one or two things, but they don't do the whole
I love that a lot. Actually, I like that because that is that hook of what do you do differently is we actually integrate.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because we're going to kind of jump back and forth because I'm really interested, obviously, in how you grew your first company, exiting, but also what you're doing now. So we'll probably jump around a little bit between your two businesses. But let's go back to the first one that you said you started with in your 30s.
Yeah.
Because I like to ask this question. Did you start that with the exit in mind? Did you know you were going to grow it and sell it in X amount of years? Or did it kind of evolve into, hey, we've got something here, let's potentially
Yeah, I think we
sell
knew
it
we
down
were
the
going to
road?
sell it at some time. We didn't know when. We just kind of see, how good of a run could we get. And so we started off small. I partnered with an existing multifamily firm. And so that gave me access to customers, frankly, pretty easily, right? So we did all their properties for our solution at that time. And then we started getting out of their properties and just, we had to go win our own deals. And by the time we grew the company, we bought some other assets. But when we sold it, 20% of our customer base were partner properties. So 80% we had to go win. And so we figured it out with our partners and refined it. And then we got pretty competent at what we were doing, and the timing was right. And Atlanta was exploding at that particular time, right after the Olympics.
Yep.
And it was just a good place to be. And we got our fair share of the market, and things were good. So we kept growing it and growing it. And in fact, the company that bought us, we were a thorn in their side.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Well, I was going to ask a question. Like, did they found you, or did they just come to you and say, "Would you like to sell?" Or were you guys running a process, or how'd that come about?
Good question. It was a combo of both. You can look at the number of new developments that are going on, and Atlanta was pretty defined, and we were just lucky, better than good, probably. But one of the companies that was a potential acquirer of us ran out of capital. So I can't say their name, but a big, huge company that ran out of capital in their budget, and so they couldn't complete these brand new apartments, or they were a competitor that was taken away. So the competitor pool got smaller, and we were winning 9 out of 10 jobs. If you look at what's down in downtown Greenville, we were winning a lot of really nice jobs because we didn't have a lot of people to compete.
Right.
When they got refunded, and we were getting all these deals and taking away a lot of their good customers, we approached them about collaborating, and they realized we need to squelch this. And so we were able to sell at a great time, and technology was changing. And so it was a great time. So the cable companies that we competed against were terrible back in, again, the 90s.
Yeah.
But they were getting better. And so when we sold, it was right at the point where you had to start putting in a lot more capital. And before then, we were mostly analog with DirecTV or Dish as a digital offering.
Yeah.
But the cable companies got better, and the amount of capital that you were putting into the property kept rising and rising. So when we sold, it was at a great time.
Sounds like it sounds like it. And it's interesting that you say, it's funny. Some people think selling, I got to be really nice and out there. And if you really think about it, when you sell a company, most of the time they buy you, and that great multipliers is when you're a thorn in their side.
Yeah.
When, they know they can't beat you, so they buy you. And that was a big thing, I think, with us at Advoco was while we could have partnered with them, our strategy was to just beat them on every deal. So finally they're like, I got to take you out.
Yeah.
Trey, when you were going through that process, how confident were you? Were you familiar with the due diligence process and the LOI process and what's all to come, or did you kind of go in thinking, oh, this should be easy, and maybe it wasn't so easy?
I'll tell you, the good thing I had in my camp was I had partners that owned these big multifamily deals. And so the deal I struck with them when we started was you run the business, we'll do the back office stuff. So they initially helped raise the money for me. They had all the big lawyers, they had the big bankers. And so some of the technical elements to what we were doing, I had partners that could handle that. So I didn't have to get into the weeds that much of it. But when we got ready to sell, we had some super sharp guys, and they're used to selling big mixed use deals and big property deals. Atlantic Station in Atlanta, if you know that, it's a $2 billion deal to get it up out of the ground. And one of those guys was on our board, and so we had access to incredible resources, and they're very good negotiators. Probably did way better than I could have done.
Yeah,
on my own. But I guess the message there is surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
And the way we launched too, we didn't have to go spend a lot of money on office space and a lot of HR stuff and benefits. We went under the umbrella of the multifamily place. And so we could, again, focus on the business, and they were doing my payroll and benefits and tax returns and all that stuff. So I didn't have to deal with that. And that's kind of what I'm doing today. I partnered up with a different industry that's tangential, but similar. And so I use all their payroll and HR and
It's always
and
funny.
all the resources.
Yeah,
And
it's always funny because we run into companies and it's like, well, we do our own payroll, we do our own benefits, and we're just like, why are you doing this? Like all that time, you get no return on
right.
generating a payroll. You get no return on benefits or health insurance. And I'm still to this day why everybody doesn't outsource all of that piece to them. We did it from day one when we had 3 of us. And to me, when you go to do an exit or you go, like none of that's a question whether you're doing your taxes right, you're doing your 401ks, like it's already right. So
it just eliminates another reason for the deal to be crashed out. Or again, people call and say, well, let me see your payroll records. Here's our payroll company. Contact them. They'll give you everything they need. So you went through that process, obviously very successful, and you started another company. Is there anything you learned from that first time that you're doing differently now with the newer company? Whether that's people, whether it's processes, whether it's, I wish I would have done that from day one before.
I'd say one of my biggest lessons out of that is when we put the company together, it was done with a very social mindset. Like I was friends with my partners. We were friendly. And over time, just different priorities kind of kicked in gear. And then our team got together and we wrote up, our purpose, vision, mission, value kind of statements. And they worked for me, but I realized that it wasn't the same mentality that my partners had. They're like, you go start this business and run it. And
you go work hard, you go run hard, we'll be over here.
And we'll dilute you later. And, I realized that we just had different values. So one of the lessons learned was the next deal I do, I'm going to make sure I've got shared values with all the appropriate partners, and that also comes down to even vendors. We need to be a little bit more like-minded and deal with good people that have shared values and make sure that we're all in the same mindset. But as we grew the company and got bigger and bigger, I think my original partners didn't think we were going to be a big deal, you know. And then you can define what a big deal means. But, we went from hiring me, and I hired a lady to run my office, and I hired a technician. And next thing you know, we're 90 people strong, and we're doing a good job. We got ranked number 1 in the country for what we do in our niche little market. And so that was our goal. Our vision was to be recognized by our customers and peers as being the best company for what we do, and one of the trade shows, that we were at, somebody's like, hey, are you going to attend the lunch today? And I was like, yeah. Because well, make sure you're on time. And I was like, okay. Whatever. And then I'm, eating and talking to people, and they're like, okay. And the number 1 company of the year is Trey Gaskin's with Advanced Telecom. I had no idea.
Whoa.
And so it was kind of cool to shoot for a goal, but not just be so focused on it, like, I'll do anything to win.
Yeah.
We just want to do what we do and do a good job at it. And we got recognized for it. So that was kind of cool.
We kind of had a similar thing where, I was never big in awards at Advoco. And we had a marketing person, and she said, we should go for South Carolina Business Awards. Like, we're a great company. People like it. we should go do it. And I'm like, I just don't like it because I've seen companies that make these their goals.
Yeah.
And then they get mad and they monitor and who said something bad. And then they're doing it for the wrong reason. So finally I was like, yeah, if you guys want to do it, great. So survey comes out. They send us the notice that, hey, you're one of the top 45 businesses in South Carolina. We have this dinner. Would you like to come? And I'm
I
like,
think it was like, do you want to buy a table?
they want to buy a table.
Wait,
Me,
this is
cheap
just
ass
another
Marty.
scam.
I'm like, it's pay to play, not really. And
Yeah.
the awards was like on my daughter's birthday, and she was in Nashville, and I was gonna go, and they're like, you should really come. And I'm like, all right, I can't come, but I'll send some people. And I'm like at the office, like, anybody want to go? And so I got like 10 people to go, but we didn't have a table. So they were like spread out, like two here, three here.
Yeah.
And they start going through the list, and they go through the top 20 and our name doesn't get called. And my phone starts buzzing at dinner, and I'm like, got the awards. So I asked my family, because I'm big on not having the phone at the table. And they're like, I said, do you mind me looking? I look at it, and it just says, hey, we must be top 20. I said, oh, that's kind of cool. And then, bzz, hey, we must be top 15. Bzz, we must be top 10. And then it got down to like top 5. And then it's like, oh shit, I think they forgot about us. Like then there's like,
we didn't make any list.
like we didn't make any list. They forgot about us. And they go down, and then they go, the number one company, and start reading it. And it's Invoco. I got chills right now. And there are pictures, like the 10 people like running around the room.
That's awesome.
Like that they won. And it was, to me, the coolest part wasn't about me or Steve, the other partner. It was about the people, and they were there and winning the award and just seeing the smiles on their faces. And it was funny. And we did it 2 years in a row. And then we just stopped. I like pulled us out. I'm like, no, I don't want to be in that mindset. But
Right.
it is cool when you get recognized for doing something great that while you want to be there, it's not why we're there.
Right.
And I think that's what made Advoco valuable to a buyer is the people, right? It wasn't necessarily customers. Like we had really good people. So I wanted to ask you, like your current company and even your past company, like what, I guess we'll start with your past company, the one that you sold. What did you think was valuable to your buyer there? And then maybe what are you thinking is valuable to a potential buyer in the new company?
Right. I'd say, again, not that we intended to do this, but when we would take one of those properties and sign them up for a long-term cable agreement, we would say, hey, we're going to invest in the technology that goes in there. And back in those days, this is, again, 20 years ago, it would have been maybe $700 a door to put the technology for the whole property. But the value, once we got that on a contract and we have like a 7-year deal or a 10-year deal, you can do the math on it and figure out how much it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest part of what we were worth was the contracts, and we figured that out pretty soon, but it was like, get as long as a contract as you can, make the terms, there's a box you got to play in, but the contracts were the real value. And that contract is something we could borrow money off of,
Right.
And when we got to a certain size, we quit getting money from over here that was expensive, and we worked a really favorable deal out. And they just said, as long as you don't spend this much money, the contract's worth this, you can spend up to here. We knew there was an arbitrage there, and that was good.
Yeah.
So anyways, the contracts were worth a lot, and the people, I guess when the big cable company acquired us, they had a bunch of people like us. So they grabbed some of the employees, but they didn't need any cost center help. And we had a really nice cost center. We picked up the phone very quickly. We were very service orientated.
Wait. You had people pick up the phone?
We had people pick up the phone.
No, that doesn't
And-
Shocking. Yeah.
And we had technicians. I mean, we were like the Maytag guy. We were like same day, next day on service.
Yeah.
But our competitors were like, we'll get to you next week, well, as soon as we can, And so we
Huge
put a high
advantage
premium
there.
on awesome service and just quality. We didn't do everything right, but we tried to do it right, and we kept learning and making sure that, next time we do this, let's take our learnings and apply them and don't repeat bad mistakes,
What I've learned too is when you make a mistake and you have that person to talk to and there's a personal conversation, people understand. Everyone knows mistakes happen. Where they get mad is when you make a mistake and you don't get a call back for a week, or hey, we'll send somebody out there in a week. That's when people lose their mind. So I mean, the fact that you guys were almost same day, that again, I've had lots of different cable companies throughout my life. I don't think I've ever been able to talk to anyone.
Well, I was always shocked, like when we got in the business, how low the bar was
Yeah.
for service. Like you think everybody's doing it, but picking up the phone, realizing that the customer isn't always right, but they're saying something that I need to be listening to and I have to respond to. And, that was a big thing. We always said it's not about who's right. It's about what's right. And that's really been a core value of us is let's stop worrying about who's right,
Right.
and just do what's right.
Yeah. That's a good
And
point.
makes a big difference. So
Yeah. But we've always said if you're in an argument and you're pulling out contracts with your clients, you probably have already lost.
Right.
Right. You might win that.
Somebody's going to be
Argument.
extra upset. It's not going to be a
Exactly.
win-win.
yeah, there's never a two-way contract, no matter how much you try.
So Trey, if there's founders out there listening, and they're trying to grow their company, what's maybe some advice you would give them as far as scaling? And is there a couple of top 2-3 things that you would say, hey, make sure you do this early on, make sure you do that, so they are prepared when that phone rings and somebody
Well-
says, hey, we'd like to buy you. Are you interested in selling? That they have at least, they're on track to,
Sure.
if they wanted to do that.
So we were talking about stuff that you guys are doing with your profiles. And when I got hired, I don't think I told you all this, but they ran me through, my investment partners ran me through a pretty extensive process. And I think it was like 4.5 hours with the business psychologist. And I filled out all kinds of tests. And the bottom line was when we were done, they said, you know what, Trey's pretty smart. But if he has to make a decision, and we were talking about the widget thing a little bit ago, but I'm the kind of guy that says if it's 1, 2, or 3, what's the best thing to do? Sometimes I'll look for 4, 5, and 6. Right?
It's the inventor in
There's
you.
that IG coming out.
Yeah. And so they said, but if you limit Trey's choices to 1, 2, or 3, he's pretty good at making the right choice. But Trey sometimes will sit there and say, maybe I don't just love these choices, So let me look for another choice. And they said, you know what? You need to surround him with the right people. And what's really important for what we're doing is you need a really good CFO. And so when I hired my
God, this is like by
controller.
design, isn't it? They're like intentionally building.
Yeah.
Well, it was, I had to find a CFO that would help me get 1, 2, or 3 instead of looking for more things just beyond that. And so when I did get my CFO, I'm interviewing him and we hit it off, and awesome guy. And I said, why are you wanting to do this? You're so overqualified for this. Your resume is awesome. You did some outstanding work in the Army, and recon and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, he goes, Trey, I've been a number 1 guy, and I'm a terrible number 1. And we haven't known each other very long, but I can tell, I think you're probably a pretty good number 1 guy, but I'm a great number 2 guy. And I don't need to be the number 1 guy, but I love supporting the number 1 guy. And I said, well, if you want to give it a try, let's try it and see how it goes. And it went well. And he was just an awesome partner, although he wasn't an equity partner, but just a great person to have on the senior team. And at that time, we used Myers-Briggs at the time.
Yeah.
And we had a simple version of that. And we'd have everybody take it. And kind of like we were talking about earlier, if you're going to be in customer service, you need to score where our top customer service people are. And we were small enough. We were probably 30, 40 people at that time on our way to 90, which, but even around then I was like, you know what, interview somebody, but before we hire them, I'd like to spend a few minutes with them. And one of the ladies they hired in our customer service group, I'm talking to her and I'm getting a weird vibe about her. And it's like, you'd be really good at customer service, but I don't think that's what you want to do. What do you really want to do? She's like, I really want to be a hairdresser. And I'm like, okay, how is this job going to help you be a hairdresser and own your own hair salon? She goes, well, I'll be learning customer service, I guess. And I was like, well, it takes us, 3 to 5 months to make you a really awesome customer service person. So I want to invest in that in you, and you're being paid not a ton of money. Why don't you go work in a salon and be a scheduler or a bookkeeper or find something to do? And that would probably help you more than working for us and having to replace you and all that. And she's like, you are right. Yeah, I'm going to go do that. And I said, well, here's who cuts my hair, and they are a big enough salon. happy to introduce you to it. But the story is find what people like to do, what they're good at, and put the right people in the right place, you know? And if it's not a mix, don't try to force it in there. And my own company, and I'm sure a lot of other people, if somebody doesn't work out in their job and they're like, you know what, I still like them. So let's have them do something else. And now we're hiring more people than we really need. And we should have made the tough call of, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And the earlier, hire slow, fire fast, that mentality, we were certainly hiring fast and firing slow. And,
You kind of got
making
it.
all the
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
We need to turn that around.
Right.
But those testings help figure out where people are in the right place. And
Man, you are talking Dale's language
you
right
are.
now.
I always think it's just because someone can do it doesn't mean they should be doing it.
That's
so
right.
she probably could have done a great job, but again, eventually she's going to burn out or just this isn't for me because I don't love it. Like, who are you going to get better results from? Somebody that loves it, loves answering that phone, loves talking to people, or someone that's just using it to get to their next step?
Right.
You're probably going to get better results from the person that loves it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of. We preferred our assessments, but use something. At least, again, you can still hire whoever you want for whatever position, but you're not going in blind. You're kind of going to know, okay, here's some areas where maybe they're going to struggle, and we need to provide some support, or hey, they're going to knock these things out of the park, and we can let them run with it. So yeah, use something.
By the way, I love like this discussion. Like you said, they made you go through this. They spent 4 hours with you to basically told you stuff that we could tell the audience, like prior to Trey coming in, he sat down, took about 4 minutes to fill out the working genius, and we got his results, and it basically said that. So we realized in about 4 minutes that you're an inventor and a galvanizer. And so what we've learned is that invention is you want option 5 and 6,
5,
right?
6, 7, 8, 9.
Well, until it feels right.
Until it feels right. Because you crave creativity. And so it makes perfect sense. And so they did something amazing is to hook you up with somebody that limits your choices. So they were probably creative. Let Trey be creative within 2 boxes, not 5 and 6. And so that wisdom is like, to me, this is what business owners need to learn. Like we always say, don't leave your team to chance.
Right.
But when we hire, we just keep hiring people because we like them. We love this girl. She might have been great, but we don't take the time to truly understand them. And in the end, we don't keep having to rehire. We don't keep finding out we got the wrong CFO.
Right.
I want to be number 1. Oh, geez, or does he have the right skills? So,
and to be unclear is to be unkind is another one of our saying. And I think what you did for her, again, don't know who she, don't know how it turned out, but you were able to take her and put her. She still had a very great experience with you and your company, even though she didn't get the job. Which I think, as an HR person, that should be everyone's goal. Is anyone that interacts with your company should walk away feeling like they got something out of the interaction.
Right.
So for her, I'm assuming she went on and owned her own hair salon and is still doing hair and making tons of money today. And it was all because you helped her kind of say, hey, this probably isn't for you. Based on all this, go do this. And then even made a phone call. I just think that's awesome.
yeah, I think it's genius stuff, which I think is what great CEOs, great owners do, is they don't look at trying. It's not, I got to win. I got to hire this person. Like our ego takes over.
Right.
And so what we learned a lot is we always said, hire slow, fire when you know.
Yeah.
Because this fire fast, I don't really like, because that just means you're shooting off the hip, but eventually we know that this is not working out. They're not in the right seats. Something's going on. And so at that point in time, when we know, again, is to keep it going, to be unclear, then is to be unkind to that person. Because you're going to fire them. And if you keep dragging it out, we think we're being nice. And in actuality, we're being unkind. So it is an interesting kind of people scenarios that we're in every day.
Yeah, I could do a whole hour show on that whole hire fast or hire slow, fire fast. I've never been a fire fast person. If you're going to take the time to invest in a good hiring process, a good selection process, train them, like you said, 3 to 5 months, why are we going to get rid of them? If we have to get rid of them that fast, there's something wrong in our process.
Right.
It's on us. That's not the employee's fault, in my opinion. We have a flaw in our process somewhere that allowed someone who wasn't passionate or great through the door. So let's go back and look at our process. Where did we mess up? where's there a hole? Let's fix that
Right.
and move forward. So if you're doing that part right, you shouldn't have to fire fast. Is kind of my
And we
opinion
always
on
believe
that.
too, like when we're letting somebody go, it's not their fault. It's
Right.
our fault.
Right.
And so to me, one of the things, and this is also a pet peeve of mine, is that when people are let go, it's like vindictive and we're not giving you anything, we're not giving you severance. And I'm like, well, we screwed up. We didn't follow the process. We didn't do, so we brought the wrong person in. We still need to treat them kindly on the way out. And I think, a lot of times that I just saw this recently with somebody who parted ways and they literally just didn't give him shit. And they took it out on him like, oh, you're leaving us. It just wasn't a fit. And instead of treating them kindly, now she's carrying this, axe against them. It just didn't make sense to me.
Sure.
I can see you guys. You guys have known each other. I don't know if we've said that, but I can see you guys have very similar business philosophies as far as winning with people, treating your people right. The fact that you had a customer service department that was the same. So I in your core values, you on your website, you talk about I care. Don't ask me what each of them state. I remember the I care part, but integrity,
Commitment, attitude, respect. And if you do all that, you'll have a great environment.
yeah. Which again, you're putting your people first without just saying generically, we put people first. Where did that come from? Have you always been a people first kind of person? Is that something you learned in your career?
I think we learned it in college. If you're nice to people, they'll be nice to you. Have a lot of friends. We haven't been in the same circle where we're only going to have 4 friends and that's it. I think we had a lot of friends, and a lot of it was we were just nice, good guys. We don't enjoy screwing people over or anything like that. We just the more people, the bigger the party, the better.
Yeah.
And I think in treating our employees, it's just find people that we were talking about maybe having a beer doing this talk. We haven't done that yet, but one of my hiring kind of rules is I want to be able to sit down and have a beer with them.
Yeah.
And if I don't enjoy that, that's not going to be fun. I probably put too much of an emphasis on fun. But I want to have people
Never.
I want to hang out with. And to bring in somebody that you don't want to hang out with, it's just it's not as fun. And there's certain roles, and you just need to give people their space. But and other things, it's just let's have an environment. That was the E in our care. But that all came from the first company. Where we took maybe 12 people off for a long weekend, and we started dealing with our purpose, our vision, our mission, and our values. And we had a bunch of stickies on the wall, and we consolidated it down. And before we knew it, it was almost there, and we had to change the meaning of one of the words. But it was like, I care, because we want people that really care.
Yeah, I love it.
And we had a customer call us out of the blue. Was a referral customer and says, please come meet me at my property. I said, sure. I get there, and I didn't really know a whole lot about the guy. Like, why did you call us again? He's like, we're dealing with this big, huge company, and they are late, and they don't do this, they don't do that, but I just want someone that says I care. And I said, I'm right here, and watch this. I'm going to reach into my wallet, and I'm going to pull out my card. And on the back of our card, it says, I care, integrity, commitment, attitude, respect, environment. And so, that's what we're not perfect, but we admit when we're wrong, and we'll do our best to rectify the situation, awesome. But we care, and all our people, if we hire right, they're people that really give a crap about what they're
what's kind of it's crazy about this interview, and Trey and I have known each other since college. We were fraternity brothers. We played tennis together. We played pickleball together. We've done all kinds of Clemson games together.
The New York Stock Exchange.
New York Stock Exchange. You invited me in to watch Clemson ring the bell. That's right. I forgot about that. But it's funny, but business philosophies, like it's almost hearing you talk. Like when I looked at Advoco, and I would say one of the reasons when we changed our trajectory is when we went off site. We took everybody off site, and we did the same thing, the sticky notes, where we came back to what is truly our mission. And because we had actually let somebody go, and he was a prominent guy in the company, and everybody's like, what happened? Like everybody was shocked. And we said, well, he wasn't at Voco. And everybody said, what does that mean? Like, what is Advoco? We went, he wasn't Advoco. And we realized, like, we kind of knew in our gut what it was, but we had never articulated it.
Yeah.
And so to me, the fact you guys went off sites, and I just did a podcast, we just talked about it, is why we believe every company needs to go off site for a number of reasons. But the fact you whittled it down to I care, like, I'm like, I love that. Like, absolutely love that.
Yeah, and we weren't looking for an acronym, or, it just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why it works. You didn't force it. So many companies start from the backwards. Let's start with I care, then just plug in the words. But,
right.
Then is it truly your core values, or is it a marketing slogan?
Right.
So that was awesome. Some owners out there, we've talked to them a lot. They get stuck, right? They're grinding away. They've hit they've grown. And they've kind of hit a whatever revenue number, a size number, and they get stuck and they get a little frustrated and they're grinding. What advice would you give them to maybe how to fight through that plateau? Or was there a scenario in either of your companies where you kind of hit that same plateau, and how did you bust through it?
Yeah. That's a really good challenge to have, is what to do when things are going either downhill or they're flat and you're trying to get to make that turn. And I think a lot of it is really a lot of reflection and just, alone time, and really try to discern, where am I going? There's a spiritual element to some of the stuff that I personally do. It's not a company mandate or anything, but it's just, pray about what to do. Pray about for making good decisions, and pray for circumstances that, stuff that's beyond our control, but stuff that we can control. Help me to be the best person that I can be, and clear the fog in my mind. Help me to see clearly, give me some vision if I'm lacking clarity, but that's one way. And then I think another healthy way is take your top guys or girls and, get in a small room like this and just talk, be open. There's so many things that rest on the CEO that he can't feel many times like he can share. I got to look strong.
Yep.
I can't look
Don't
weak.
let him see you
Can't be
sweat.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Can't be vulnerable.
And I learned that in Vistage. It was like, a CEO forum, but a lot of the guys are just like, I can't tell them we have cash flow problems. I can't talk about we might not make payroll next week, or we got a lawsuit that's lingering on us that could take us down, and you get, your mind will focus on the negative. So think about the positive things, I guess, and then just really pray what's the best outcome. And, there's so many divine things that have happened, especially recently with this company. It's miracle after miracle. And so the prayer part of it and the discernment part of it is just something that's helped me personally. And I think our team has weighed in and given us some good advice. And you think you got everything figured out, and ask your folks. Don't be afraid to say, I got to do it all. I got to be the smartest person in the room. And I think a lot of people know that the room is smarter than the smartest person in the room.
Always. Yeah.
And there's a good book about that. And
What
so,
is it? What's that book? Do you remember?
I'll remember it in a minute.
That'll hit you when you're.
Well, it's kind of like they used like the jelly bean example. How many jelly beans are in this can?
Oh yeah.
500, 400, 300. But you take the average of everybody's number, and many times it's right on.
It's right on. Yeah.
Yeah. And
we ran again. You talk through these things, and I think about even my journey when we started dipping, and what I hear through prayer and through self-reflection is clarity, right? To stop trying to solve the problem, to stop figuring, and just open your heart to what's going on. And that happened to me. And I remember like I was doubling down and I was putting pressure, and I was like, I. And I realized finally, like, I'm the problem. I'm not the solution.
yeah.
And so when we as business owners, whatever, sometimes we have to step back. We have to open up ourselves to our team. And in that transparency, they're more resilient. Like sometimes we act like, oh, they're going to be afraid, they're not going to do it. But it seemed like the more open we are with the team, the more they want to help, the more they're almost appreciating you opening your heart to them. So
Yeah, I think if you have the right people on the right team for the right reasons, I know that's a lot of rights. Yeah, they see that vulnerability and that trust and say, "No, you're not in it alone. We're gonna work even harder. We're gonna grind." And what I hear when you guys are talking about this is a fresh set of eyes, whether that's through prayer, meditation, talking to other people. Right? It's hey, I'm stuck, I'm grinding, but I can't figure it out. Let me bring somebody in that has a fresh set of eyes, right? And they're going to be able to spot stuff. I think our last post was about, you walk into a cluttered room. If it's my cluttered room, I don't even notice the clutter.
Right.
But if you have a guest over, the first thing they're going to be is, wow, that house is really cluttered.
Man,
right?
that thing's
Right.
a mess. How do you live here?
How do you live there? Don't even notice it. So I think that was great advice of getting people you trust in a room and being open and honest and just saying, hey, I'm struggling. What do you guys see? What do you think? And work through it.
So one of the things I think we need to bring up, sort of a tough subject, and I think you hit something you were playing pickleball and had, I guess, kind of got dizzy and fell, hit your head. And I mean, it was a bad journey. You want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think as business owners, like one of the challenges is sometimes when we're in control, we're not in control, and how you had to deal with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you summarized it pretty well. I mean, you get people that you say, do you know when your time is? Or, another way to say that is always be ready, right?
Yeah.
Because you never know when you're going to get run over by a truck, or playing pickleball and having fun and you trip, or in my case, I got dizzy, was probably didn't drink enough water that day, fell backwards, hit my head. And next thing you know, I'm having brain surgery. And, over the next week, I'm told, because I was out, there were 2 times that I was close to not making it.
Mm-hmm.
And so to get through that and to wake up in the hospital and I'm going, all right, I need my computer, I need my phone. And they're going, no,
No. Yeah.
I got to talk to my guys, and no, you can't talk to anybody, besides your family. And so I had to go 2 months without talking to anybody in the company. My wife and daughters were the go-between to my partners, who were awesome, and they just supported the heck out of me. But my team was doing the best that they could do, and I just hired a couple people right before that, and felt like during the next 30, 60, 90 days we're going to figure out how we're going to run and ease you into the business. And some were experienced, some had not our experience, but they had different experiences that applied to what we were doing. And I thought, we'll get them trained up and ease them into the business. And then all of a sudden I'm gone, and then after I got out of the hospital after 2 months, I had to do half-day rehab for the next 6 months. And so that would wear me out. So I was working a couple hours a day on a good day, and they were doing the best job that they could do. But when I finally got back in the business, and I was just noticing, we just weren't, all cylinders weren't cranking well together, and there was a little bit of friction on some things. And previously I felt like I probably could have diffused it, and just realized that we started here and we're supposed to go there, A to B, and we ended up at D over here, and it's like, I don't want to go there, we want to go here. And so it took a little bit, and especially after having the brain surgery, I was challenged to don't make any big decisions.
Right.
And if you do, bring your family into it, bring your business partners into it, make a group decision. And I did that, and I didn't mind doing that. And but many times in the past, I just would have done it myself,
Yeah.
And so, anyways, we worked through it, and then some things became obvious that we needed to make some changes. And so we, slowly made what we thought were the right changes, and brought in some new faces. And it was challenging as heck, and to do all that. But we turned the corner, and just amazing things started happening right after we did that. And
yeah, I think it's always interesting in that scenario. And I remember you were going through that, and my heart just went out to you and the family, like the stuff that just happened by accident. But as a leader, as businesses, like, we have to be prepared. We don't ever think about this litmus test, and we think we're the only one in charge and can do it. And in the end, we're not. And how we build our team, I think you got a different sense of how you wanted to build your team moving forward.
Yeah. And there's some, again, lessons learned going back to the first company. When I came out of that scenario and I realized our core values were just very different than at the partner level, that the next time I do this, I want to make sure we're all on the same value mechanism. And Although you see some of these purpose statements on walls and stuff like that, and we've had that debates and other ventures in between. Oh, it's just on the wall, and it doesn't mean everybody's going to do it. And it's like, but you got to instill it, and you got to challenge people that we do have a core purpose. Why are we here? And then, where we're going, our vision. We want to articulate where we want to go. We're just not going to get there by accident. We want to throw it out there. We want to be recognized as the best company in what we do. That was our previous vision. And then our mission is how we get there. The hands and feet, and that's the other part of the team of coming up with the ideas and empowering the right people and giving them the opportunity to execute the vision or the mission. And then when you get to a sticking point, if you do it well, you revert back to your core values. And what do my values say? What does my gut say? If we're supposed to be all about integrity and we're supposed to be all about commitment and we're going to choose to have the right attitude and we'll respect our customers and our clients and the other employees and our vendors, and we want to create a cohesive environment, which decision is going to check all those boxes or most of the boxes?
Yeah.
So I think your values come up and help you make those hard decisions.
North Star. Because that had to be I don't know you well, but I know you well enough to know those folks helped you get through a pretty rough time, personally and professionally. And then to come out of that and say,
may not be the right people.
You may not be the right fit, right? I don't think a lot of...
Well, it was a host of people that helped me through that.
I don't think a lot of owners, leadership teams would have maybe had the guts. I don't know what the right word is to make that tough decision. I think a lot of folks would have maybe just said, well, they were there for me, and they'll keep those folks on board. To your point, maybe we move them in a different role, maybe we do, but you would keep them on and you would continue to kind of plateau and struggle like we talked about earlier, but you knew the team that got me here isn't going to get me there. So you had to make some tough decisions. And I just think that's needed to be called out because I don't think it's a common thing that a lot of folks would do. And it's, I think part of being that owner is you have to make tough decisions and you have to do it well and you have to treat them with respect. And, you don't just.
Yeah, it wasn't on a whim. And I tell you what, there was a ton of discernment behind it and alone time and prayer time to figure out, some of this, you just know it's not going to work. And some of it's, like, let's try to find another opportunity where it could work. But it, as time went on, it became clear that we needed
what the
make
team
some changes.
is. And again, it's just, those are the things that are hard in business. They're making those moves. And, I think we learned so long ago, like we would hire fast. And again, when I went to Dave Ramsey one of the things I learned was just to slow down because I would just handpick anybody. And towards the end, I made some good early hires because when we're in the trenches, but my later hires were terrible. They were just like, it was a running joke, like keep Marty out of the interview room. And it wasn't because, it was just because what happens is we start actually looking at a role we want and we start manifesting what we want into that person. We weren't sitting there really looking at that person versus at Advoco, you had to go through 15 interviews. And at the end, you had to do a presentation in front of 5 people. And that team knew, were you Advoco? Would you follow the right philosophy and would you fit? And so to me, like, all those processes and people, like collectively, we are a team, and that's how we're going to grow together as a team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, Trey, I always, love the what if questions, which as a wanderer being your frustration, you probably hate. But if you're an owner out there and you're 2-ish years away and you're thinking you want to exit in the next 2 to 3 years, what are maybe some things you would recommend that they do to get ready?
So I think it depends on what kind of business you're in and who. Is it a strategic buyer? Is it a financial buyer?
And let's say they don't know, right? The phone call hasn't come yet, but
we always say, are you prepared when the call comes?
There's certain things that, hey, make sure you have this and that and this other thing buttoned up and ready to go. Or
well, going back to that first company, we knew that our buyer was not going to need a lot of our people. They needed the contracts. They didn't need the people as much. We had some great people, and they kept some of them. But I think you probably know who your buyer is. But if it's a financial buyer for X times cash flow, and Are they still going to use your people, or are they going to weave you into their existing organization? But I guess to say, if they're going to be using your people a lot, then you need to have an awesome team, right? And you got to have the right people in the right spot, and they're going to come in, they're going to do their diligence, and they're going to say, do we need to make some changes here, or have we tested everybody out, or are people in the right role? If I had a whiteboard around here, I would draw a picture of a person that has got a happy face on them. And going back to the purpose, vision, mission, values, everybody works, and I use this a lot in some of the businesses, but everybody's got a department they work in, and we got goals and objectives for the people in that department. And then you got another box next to it that's the company goals. And the company helps set the goals that are in the department, and you want alignment there, right? And then the next box up is called your personal goals. And so if you have your department, your company, and your personal goals all in alignment, and that takes discernment and asking a lot of questions and some uncomfortable questions. And but if you have alignment on that, we would draw a circle around that like a rubber band and say, we called it there's a word that's escaping me right now, but it's I think it's called creative tension. And so again, think of a rubber band around what I just drew, and it's not too tight where it's choking you, but it's not too loose so there's no boundaries, and you're just doing whatever you want to do. And then you take the lady I was talking about, her personal goal was way over here, opposite side, and so there's not alignment there. Or you hire people that you got to watch, and you got to micromanage, and neither one of us probably likes micromanaging a bit. If I have to micromanage you, that's another
that's
wrong
a
signal.
Oh, dear God, yeah.
And so you just want alignment. So I think if you're that person, you've got a little bit of a plan that shows, here's our, again, this is myself for what I do, but I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but here's our clear for clarity. Here's our clear purpose, our clear vision, our clear mission, our core values that we're making our decisions by. And then, it's a 1 or 2 page. There's a book I like called The On Purpose Person. Kevin McCarthy wrote that, and I read it right after we sold the first company, and I had a chance to meet him. I actually got certified on his deal, but he's the one where I'm kind of stealing the purpose, vision, mission, values. And so everybody's on purpose. So your word is intentionality.
Yeah.
My word's purpose.
Right.
Which is very similar, right?
Correct.
And so we want to be an on-purpose business, which there's a book about that. And then the other prequel to that.
By the way,
is
you're
called The
hearing a
On-Purpose
commonality, like, it's, what do they say? Readers or leaders are readers? Yep. Like, because we're not that smart. I mean, I can't speak for Trey's grades, but mine weren't the best at Clemson. So I knew that my success was going to be on the backs of learning of other people. Yeah. And so to me, reading helps kind of form these views. Yeah. And you see how they come out. I want to say one other thing that I really like about what you're doing and what I'm hearing, and this is kind of one of my frustrations, is as a leader, we have to understand not what we want from our team, but what do we want for our team? Yeah. And so for you to sit down and to say, let's look at the company's important, the department's important, but you're important. And what happens is leaders spend so much time because they're worried about themselves. How am I going to look? What about my numbers? What about my bonus? What about my? Yeah. And then they forget about their team, and their team's falling apart. And then they realize if your team falls apart, you're not going to hit any of your goals anyways. So I love the faith. Really, if we're going to win, got to stop thinking about me and think about sort of the we. Yeah. So I love that you brought that up, because I wish more leaders spent more time worried about their people. And again, whether it's good or bad, we need to spend that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're promoting, again, from that book. I try to give the new people a copy of the On Purpose business book. And if you want the On Purpose personal book, I'll give you that. I got trained on that, and I thought at one time maybe my next thing was to help people figure out their purpose in life. Mm-hmm. So if you remember the Steve Martin movie, the jerk.
Yeah.
It's like, Mom, I figured out my purpose.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Yeah.
That's when he was at the carnival.
That's right. Yes.
But yeah, I think figuring your purpose out, I think I heard that question many times growing up, but I think I was probably 38 when somebody asked me 3 times in 2 weeks, somebody said the exact question of, what do you think your purpose is? And I'm like, where'd this come from? You know? And I started thinking about it. And this is not the Rick Warren book, you know, The Purpose Driven Life. But it was a good time. I got into the book. We sold the company. I had some time off, and I just went through the book, and I did every single thing that he recommended, and I had the time to do it. And I came up with my own personal purpose, mission, vision, values as a person, and then I carried that to all the companies I went with, and I did some consulting. And one of the things we would do is go through that exercise of figuring out how to
Life's
fill
a
up
whole
those
lot
boxes.
easier if you know what you want and why you want it.
Yeah. Yeah. What your direction is, you know,
Yeah.
you're just not going anywhere.
So the irony is, you know, what I always said is, you know, my ultimate goal is I got tired of working for assholes.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm never going to work for an asshole again. And, you know, it was the genesis of my book was, you don't have to be an asshole to be a leader. Like, it drove me crazy that so many leaders thought about their ego and how great they were and how they treated people. And I just like, this just is so wrong. And I just, you know, when I built Advoco, I you know, my whole purpose was I want to build a company I want to work for.
Right.
Like, that treats people with respect, that hears people, that understands people. And early on, people were like, oh, you'll never make it.
Right.
And I'm like, good guys can finish first.
That's right.
And so I thought, you know, back to that purpose, it really that drove me, that I woke up every day that I wasn't going to fail because we had this family, we had these people, we had this shared purpose, and it made getting out of bed and talking to clients and why they should go with Advoco a whole lot easier than I just wanted to make a lot of money.
Right.
Well, since we're throwing out books, Principle of the Path by Andy Stanley. I love what his direction, not intent, determines your destination.
Yeah.
And I think, again, all this kind of stuff is interrelated, but it's all about being intentional, knowing where you want to go, being purposeful in where you want to go. I can want to lose weight all I want, but if I'm eating Oreo cookies every night, my direction is not to lose weight. So,
Well,
great.
the pile on Andy is visioneering. Have you all read that one?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that you know, Nehemiah story is awesome. And,
Yeah.
and I just read that the other day, and it was just like, what a great ability, you know, to cast a vision. But before he did that, he prayed about it, you know, and he went to go talk to the king. And before he talked to him, he prayed about it, and he was very humble in front of the king. And he's like, why do you look so sad? And he's like, you know, back in Israel, you know, our cities, you know, is in disarray, and we don't have any walls. And to be able to put a plan together, there was a clear vision. The mission was to go there, figure it out, and then he got everybody involved. You know, all like the clans that were there, and he had people that were trying to mess it up. You know, and so he planned again, have people at night, have people, you know, fake people with a spear to look like there's more people than they are.
Yeah.
But in record time, and especially in times like that, I think it was like 56 days or something like that, they rebuilt the walls, you know, they thwarted their enemies, you know, and everything.
Sounds like a galvanizer to me.
Yeah, it sounds like everything went as well as it could, but, you know, he got permission from a higher level, you know, and the king saw that too, you know, so everything was in alignment, and I don't know. It's a great story, a great book.
Yeah.
Nope, I agree. The right people and the right team going in the right direction is, I mean, it's undefeated, I think. But
Yeah. What was that? Jim Collins, and they made one thing is when you got on the bus, if you had the right people in the right seat on the bus going and, you know, doing what we want, we didn't have to have that 3-year, 4-year plan. We're going to figure it out. And that's right. You know, I think sometimes leaders, everybody's like so driven to their plan. Like, you know, I hate sort of the question, where do you want to be in 3 years? Like, nobody really knows. What they know is in their heart, if I follow these, if I get the right people and right stuff, we will figure it out. And that's, again, I think back to success. I think, Trey, it's been part of your success has always been, how do we collectively as a team figure it out? And back to, you know, I care. Like, if that is at the core principle of everything we do, how can you lose?
Right.
Well, Trey, thank you so much for some
Yeah,
time
thank you all for
this
having
evening.
me. This has been fun.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have you back and talk more. I need to hear some of these Clemson stories. I hear some of Marty's Clemson stories, but not all of them.
He's like the big fish. You hear these stories, and then you find out they're actually true.
Well, Trey, thank you. Marty, thank you. For everybody out there listening, thank you. And until our next episode, thank you.